Welcome to the Sheffield Sunday as Bill Sees It meeting. This is a main share meeting, and it is with great pleasure and much gratitude that we welcome Marty C. from Hamilton, who's come to share for about 40 minutes, after which we'll open up for general sharing, or if you would like to ask a question. Marty, it's beautiful and a miracle to have you here, and the floor is yours.
Sky, you have no idea how accurate that is. No idea. I am so casual. I'm really happy to be here at this ungodly hour out here on the east. Well, I had a long and wonderful AA day yesterday from 6:30 in the morning till about midnight last night, and knew I had this going on today, and was very excited. And I chose page 104, but I can swing 104 and 105 in together, the reading that Young did today. And I only chose that in like half hour ago. Yeah. I don't like to leave stuff to the last minute or anything. And then I went to go on here in a real bizarre way. Like it's again such a casual thing. I've done this so many times, and I go on here, and then it comes up with some sort of thing about I have to sign in for my commercial Zoom license, and it blocked me. It wouldn't allow me in here, and that was at about 20 to the hour. And thank God that Young got on there and confidently coached me through. Now, you guys know, if you saw when the camera first went on, I had a jacket. I had my tie done up nice. I looked good about 10 minutes ago. Now I'm soaked. I'm drenched. My head's. And so just remember, I had the jacket and tie perfectly in place there just a few minutes ago because it was coming off anyway. One more thing I'll say, and then I'll get to it. What the hell happened in Ohio this morning at 7:30? What are all you guys from Columbus doing here? I love these girls. They go everywhere. They're always around. I love them. It's good to see you guys. And my buddy Brad, good to see you too, pal. I am excited to talk about our subject matter today. And the beauty of it is that when Young reads the 105, moving ahead, we're moving into what it was talking about on 104, and I'm just going to quickly get centered in this place where this magnificent way of life is not only a blessing that's been bestowed upon me, but it's also filled with obligation, wonderful, purposeful, meaningful obligation. I had a life without purpose and without obligation, and I made it that way. And, I come from an alcoholic home. The mayhem and the calamity and crisis of alcoholism was around me my whole life. Active drinking and the alcoholism has affected my non-drinking mother, and the pain and the anguish of living in a home where I never knew what was coming next. I have a very hard time identifying any fears in my life today, but I have no problem identifying the fear of being a young boy with the blanket pulled over my head as my mother was getting another swat in the mouth. And the crashing of pots and pans upstairs, and my older brother and I running upstairs to pull my father off of my mother, and those fears and that intensity of life was something that I was very familiar with. And I got to spend some time with Sandy Beach a few years ago, and we're having dinner, and he said that I turned out to be a famous line. We were eating dinner, and he says, Marty, said, the older I get, the better my childhood was. And I know this to be true. And if you think about that, you're in your own life. I mean, my perspectives have changed so much. And just because I probably won't get back to touch on that today, the peace and the amends that I've made with my parents and with that life and is duly to you. It's because of you guys. It's because of this program. It's because of walking through this sort of life-changing, life-altering system and set of things that we have to do here. I was able to sort of bring peace to all of those things in my life and become a son to that father and hold him as he left this world. I became the responsible individual in the family. I was the black sheep my whole life, and I became the guy that they counted on to be there and watch both my parents out of this world. And and I have siblings who they're square johns, like they don't have this affliction, yet we get bestowed this responsibility. We get bestowed this obligation. And why is that? I took my first drink when I was 12. I love the effect produced by alcohol immediately. And probably, that's probably an understatement. I mean, I love the effect produced by alcohol, but I also needed that effect. When I took a couple of drinks at 12 years old, it it remedied everything that was wrong with me, and I had no idea there was anything wrong with me. The moment that I had the effect produced by alcohol, I thought, oh my God, this is how the rest of the world feels. This is how everybody else lives. And I began to pursue that and got into a ton of trouble and ended up in prison over and over again, and never understanding how I got there, swearing to my loved ones I would never do it again. And, and so that's how my alcoholism worked. And on the outside, inside I had this detachment, and my insides never matched my outsides, and never knew how I really felt about anything. The rules of my home growing up were don't talk, don't trust, don't feel. And as a young man, an angry young adolescent man, I'm violent, and I'm moving into this place where the violence is a more acceptable means of participation in life. And being a tough guy and being mouthy and getting into trouble all the time just was my nature. And it began to separate me from other human beings. At 19, I was diagnosed as a sociopath, and the whole idea is that I couldn't even play well with prisoners, and I spent most of my time in the hole and just alone and bitter and angry and in fire retardant pajamas with a Bible and spending and eating bean cake and this is how my life is going. And I believe in my head that this is the existence that's been laid out for me. I become very, very prone to subscribe to fate, that you were in the line where things went well and I was not. That this is a way of life. So I hit my knees on July the 16th, 1987. I screamed out in a jail cell, I don't want to live like this. I don't want to live like this anymore. And the room filled up with light. Well, let me rephrase it. I'm sorry. I filled up with light. The room did not fill up with light. When I stood, my feet felt like they weren't touching the ground. All the stuff and all that pain and the weight of who I was left. It was not there. And my life changed that day, July the 16th, 87. The obsession, the drink was removed. I haven't had a drinking thought since that day. And my life began to change, and I came to you with a vengeance. And I spent 14 years in Alcoholics Anonymous, doing everything I was instructed to do and many things I was not. And what I mean by that was I got in and out of relationships. I was a nefarious player. I robbed, I lied, I cheated, I stole in sobriety. And I was in a community where we didn't talk about the 12 steps. We didn't talk about a relationship with God. That was not the Alcoholics Anonymous milieu that I walked into. It's nobody's fault. It's been a slow process of change in the area I come from, to get big books in the hands of new guys and to talk about the 12 steps, but it's happened. And this endeavor I was speaking at yesterday in a small community in Northern Ontario, it hasn't happened there yet. My talk is Greek to people who have not had a 12-step experience. These are don't drink and go to meeting folks, nice, good old people who don't know what's available to them. A lot of you guys are talking about regularly. I see your list of speakers. I've been watching your 8 o'clock a.m. This is what happens with this meeting. This is a great meeting. And what happens with me is it's Sunday, for God's sake. So I'm getting up around 10, have a couple cups of coffee with the dog and the wife, and go out and cut the grass. Then I come in and I flip onto Facebook and I see, oh, damn it, as Bill sees it, look at the speaker they got today. And I look down in the bottom left corner, 8 a.m. Eastern time. Who the hell gets up for that? And so I've been wanting to come here for a while. So you guys got it. You guys talk, your speakers, you talk about this stuff. You go into as Bill sees it, and somebody's going to put a real legitimate 12-step spiritual spin on whatever it is we're reading about. And so I'm very proud of you guys for that. And I'm very happy that continues to be your quest, that you're opening up the door for people to be exposed to some beautiful truths in recovery. And so my life changed. And for 14 years, I'm banging meetings and I'm sponsoring people, and I'm right in the middle of service and GSR, DCM. I get right in the middle of all of this stuff. And I'm participating in all aspects of Alcoholics Anonymous, except the steps. It wouldn't be a thing in our literature if it wasn't a thing. Two-stepping is a real thing. And they refer to it in our literature as two-stepping. And it said for years in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous's life, as that was what people were doing, was don't drink and help people. And that is called two-stepping. I didn't make it up. but it was the norm. And that's what I was doing. I wasn't drinking, and every weekend I was moving somebody. That's kind of how it went. There was no 12 steps, no nothing. I sponsored 25 guys, and we all became movers and helping people do stuff. And that's what we did. And again, fully charged AA life. If you ask my mother at 5 years sober, 10 years sober about Alcoholics Anonymous, she said, you guys saved my life. There's no doubt about it. This wasn't 14 years of nonsense. This was 14 years where I eventually became educated. I eventually got a job. I eventually had a relationship of some persistence, and I bought a home, and she had these things going on around me, but inside there is completely no change. The only difference is this sociopath started to think of others. What are we talking about here today? What are we talking about here today? I'm now 37 years sober, and I'm closer now to the understanding of, no, let me rephrase that. I'm closer now to understanding that I'm so far away from understanding than I've ever been. And I don't know if that makes sense. It might make sense to people who are excited about the mystery of this sobriety, like me. But the more I learn, the less I know. It's incredible. It's incredible. I can go onto a meeting like this, and I could just sit back and I can listen to Kurt Z or my buddy Chris S, and I can listen to these guys talk, and I'm like a little kid sitting at their feet. I was at a live presentation with Scott Lee about a month ago, and I took the very front row seat, and I was 8 feet from him up on a stage, and I was 8 feet, and I felt like a little boy in summer camp or something, and I listening to somebody talk about beautiful things, and there's nothing else around me. I'm a 60-year-old, 250-pound mental case, and there I am devouring the essence of this spirit that flows within us. I said that last night too. There was maybe 165 people in the room, and I said, it goes like that through the room. When we get together for the purpose of recovery, for some strange reason, there's a spirit. And I didn't think it was possible on Zoom. You guys know my story from a few years back. I resisted this. I rejected it. It was never going to be anything I participated in. And then I started to experience this spirit in this format. And it was like, boy, when one alcoholic gets together with another alcoholic for the purpose of recovery, God enters the room. So I'm just to touch on this real quickly. And I don't know if when you guys pop on here, you all have your As Bill Sees It book, or I don't know if everybody just waits for the reading to be read and that, but just very quickly, and just indulge me. On 104, it says, we had a new employer being all powerful. You guys know this. This is on the top of page 63. And this is where, we find out that like something's about to happen. I'm brand new in getting sober, and something's about to happen. But it says, I want to talk about this today. We had a new employer being all powerful. He provided what we needed. If we kept close to him, performed his work well. Established in such a footing, we become less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. More and more, we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. As we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of his presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, or hereafter. We were reborn. And then it suggests that we do the third step prayer in the manner that it's given to us. We were reborn, and then it suggests the prayer. So this is the position that we take. This is the deal we make. This is the position we get ready to. If we kept close to him and performed his work well, all will be provided. Then you look over here, and it says, move ahead. It says, this is being tied, this 105, this is being tied right into this sort of deal that we're going to make. We're going to carry this message. We're going to spend time with others. We're going to talk about these things, and we're going to be uninterested in our little plans and designs. This, on page 105, will become a priority for us. Is that the needs of others all of a sudden starts to become an absolute priority. I forget what page it's on. I think it's on top of page 21 or something like that. It says, our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depend upon our constant thought of others and how we might help meet their needs. Now, is that like not the essence of page 105? Our very existence. So I don't know, again, like it's 8 o'clock in the morning here, and I don't know what my day is going to be shaped like, but can I live that way? Can my very existence be contingent upon my constant thought of others? Or am I going to be, my brain and that going to be sneaking in all day long about how to get my way and get my stuff done? Or can I constantly get conscious contact? Can I constantly get back to this power? So to sort of pull this together, it's like I have this it wasn't anti-religion. It was anti-God. I had an anti-God perspective for many years because when I would lay awake in them cells, I would blame the God of your understanding, God of the universe and the world that I was exposed to as a kid. I would blame that power on the circumstances and the conditions of my life. Believing in fate, the God drove fate, that he picked you over me. And that had that deep inside of me. And you want to talk about agnosticism, or you want to talk about sort of separation from this power. That was so deep inside me, I didn't even know it was there. And even in my first 14 years of sobriety, having had that surrendering experience in July the 16th, 87, and God became, you guys, my story, I hit my knees and I said, I don't want to live like this. I don't live like this anymore. And I heard a voice say, you don't have to. You don't have to live like this anymore. And boom, the lightness in me came. And so I had that powerful barn burning experience where God made a bank shot. So I knew that God existed. I knew this power existed. I just didn't think he cared about me. It had nothing to do with me caring about him or his kids. It had to do with, I just thought that God didn't care about me and that my life would consistently and always be necessarily managed by me. Here it says we have a new employer. We have a new boss. And then it goes over to 105 and it says, what point is there in that? It says all of that stuff in that deal we're going to make. It says, we became more interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. It doesn't say we became more and more interested in getting the things that I had always hoped for, or we became more and more interested in my academic pursuits or my finding love or discovering love. I mean, so many of the young guys that I work with today are constantly swiping right and all that kind of stuff, seeking something to bring them some sort of conversation piece, I suppose, for the next day. And yet it's so difficult for me as a sponsor or some sort of a leader to help them to sort of turn that that stuff introspectively and say, find this stuff within. Try to find this stuff within. So again, that's what ties into this piece that we're reading today, where it says to spend too much time in an alcoholic is an opportunity to live and be happy. I'm going to tell this, I'm just pop this in here right now. I know I'm jumping around a little bit, and I'm hoping that it sort of makes sense because I am talking about the relationship with this power. So I'm so detached. And I have this experience. I'm 14 years sober. I have this experience where I am introduced to the 12 steps for the first time at 14 years sobriety. And it was Mark Houston who carried the message to me. He took me into a hotel room and he put me on my knees and qualified me as an alcoholic for the first time, asked me about this pinch hitter God that I had been participating in life with for 14 years. Every time I got in trouble, I would blame God. And every time I got out of trouble, I would take the credit. That's how it went for 14 years. And then he gets me connected in this idea about the need for this power, the need for the conscious contact with this power, not just the knowledge that there is a God, but a need to have a relationship with this God. And how did he do that? He said to me, do you believe? And I said, well, I believe there's something. So the first question we ever ask anybody is, I believe there's something. And then he said, well, in your case, then you've been here a long time. God is either everything or else he's nothing. And if you guys have ever heard me speak, I was baffled by where I thought to myself, this guy's a guru. Where's he getting this stuff? And he said that God is either everything or else he is nothing. And I started to sort of weep. And I said, he's got to be everything. It's got to be everything. And he said, would you say a prayer with me? And I developed in that moment the understanding, the conscious understanding that I could have a conscious contact with this power anytime I sought. Because deep down inside of me was the existence of this power. I didn't have to go and find it. It's always been there. And it's been blocked by calamity, pomp, and worship of other things. It's been blocked and it's been below the surface of my consciousness. I beckoning at times when I had my little girl was born, and I knew deeply that this was something magnificent and powerful and way beyond me, and then dismissing it within hours because of the management necessary to raise a small child. And that's me. I'm doing that. See, so it was easy to separate these gifts and this exposure to the magnificence of this power. Which brings me to the reading today. You cannot deny the magnificence of this power when you're working with others. When you're carrying this message and you're working in the service of this this beautiful program, what you see, what I see, what I experience is way beyond mortality. It's way beyond the words that we can give it. It's way beyond the understanding. And I've said this a million times, and I absolutely believe this to be true because of my experience. When one alcoholic gets together with another alcoholic for the purpose of recovery, God enters the room every time. I am never closer to the power of my understanding than when I'm with another alcoholic and talking about recovery. And if you've been involved in fellowship for a while, you know this to be true too. When one alcoholic gets together with another alcoholic for the purpose of golf, there's no God around at all. You know what I mean? They're lying on their scorecards, they're cheating. These are good AA buddies going out golfing. It's full of shit. You know what I mean? It's like no God around at all. And a bunch of us, Brad knows a lot of them, and a bunch of us play hockey together in recovery. This is a clean and sober hockey league here, and all AA guys. There's like 180 men, no more than that. There's like 22 teams. Like, there's a lot of us in Ontario now. It's really grown. It's all AA guys, and we start every game with the Serenity Prayer. We come to the circle and we put our hands together and we say the Serenity Prayer. And everybody, it's a love-in, man. It's a real love-in, right? And it's hockey. Now, some of you guys might even not know it. It's hockey. Gloves, sticks around, we hold hands. God, grant me the serenity to accept. And then the referee steps out and drops the puck. Bang, boom, 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 boom. There's no God around at all. You know? So when one alcoholic gets together with another one for the purpose of hockey, God is not there. But when one alcoholic gets together with another alcoholic for the purpose of recovery for this stuff, you don't have to be 10 years sober. That's not an issue. It's almost like this amalgamation of this beautiful thing that we've been blessed and given, this amalgamation of your intent, of your innocence, your humble presence before this God, as you would be if you had a new employer. You know, you get, it says we had a new employer. And what happens when we get a new employer in the real world? Boy, we put our best foot forward. We try hard. We ask questions. We you know, it's only when we start knowing everything when we start running into trouble, right? So the idea is we always have to have a new employer. Every day I got a new employer. And you know what? Like the omnipotence and the stuff like that, although it's consciously known to me, the more I'm awake, the more I'm awakened to the power and the presence, the more I see. And I got to tell you, sometimes it's quite interfering, you know, because it's a difficult world today. I work in the streets. I work with schizophrenic, alcoholic, and addicts, and our streets in Hamilton are all over the world, actually, are beleaguered with homeless and destitute individuals. And those are my guys. Those are the guys I'm spending time with. So I see a lot of this sadness. But I'll sit down with a cup of coffee and you know, and a bottle of water in this heat and stuff like that. And I'll just sit with them and, you know, they'll have a cigarette and I'll chat. And one human to another human being, I got to tell you, you know, that's the biggest gift that's been bestowed upon me, is sitting with other people, being able to do that safely and spiritually sit with another person and together examine our lives. So again, if you ever heard me speak, you probably, like on the front of my big book, I have the police, our chief responsibility. We have the big boards at my home group, the 12 steps and 12 traditions. Brad hangs them up every week. My friend Brad is here. And there's a sticker on the bottom right corner of the steps, and it says our chief responsibility to newcomers and adequate presentation of the program. That's what the sticker says on it. And I take that, it says our chief responsibility. I'm thinking that's our number one responsibility, you know, and whatever your participation is in this beautiful 12-step recovery program. I don't know. I'm just reading what it says. This is what it says in 105. It's what Young led today. It says our chief responsibility is an adequate presentation of this program to the newcomer. So what is the program? Well, the program is the 12 steps. That's the program. An adequate presentation of the 12 steps to the newcomer is our chief responsibility. We hear a lot about welcoming people in and shaking hands and greeting and all of that stuff is huge. It's huge. What is the point if it's not quickly followed up by our chief responsibility? Like, what is the point? And it's, you know, it's not like I would sit here and I would ever argue this. I'm just following the script, and a lot of us pay a lot of attention to the literature in such a way that it makes reasonable requests. It exposes what I believe is to be reasonable obligations and responsibilities. Once I learn what these obligations and responsibilities are, they don't become burdensome anymore. As soon as I learn that when I introduce these things into my life, all the obligation and burdensome nature of these responsibilities goes away. It stops being a responsibility and becomes the joy of living. It becomes the way we live. For me, it becomes the way I live. And people say that all the time. They say to me, hey, well, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of time, young. Are we going to open up for sharing too? After I'm done, we open for sharing? All right. That's good. That's good. I'm not much more interested in what everybody else has to say, but this thing about this, so when I meet somebody, you know, and how this looks like when it says move ahead, right? So I'm not going to talk about spending too much time on any alcoholic, because that's such an arbitrary, conjectural sort of perspective. I think the best thing to do is if that concept sort of becomes something in front of you, that you talk to your sponsor and you say, this is what's happening. And your sponsor then can say, no, to spend too much time in an alcoholic, blah, blah, blah. So that's a very arbitrary thing. What we know is that we have a chief responsibility. And when somebody rejects that, or somebody looks like that's not of interest to them, or we again have specific directions on what it is we're to do with that person. And it says we may have made a new friend, you know, and we'd always treat people with love and tolerance. We're not shooing people away. We are neither on a membership drive here, or are we in the business of shaming people or putting people off. You know, the thing is that you, yourself, me, I have an understanding of how this stuff evolved. And Mark Houston in that hotel room that day took me through those steps and put me in inventory. And he did that in, I don't know, I want to say half an hour. And so his chief responsibility was being fulfilled, is he gave me an adequate presentation of the program, one I had never heard before. Being here 14 years, I was the closing speaker at that conference on the Spiritual Sunday. I was the guy there to give the message of hope to people from the spirit. And I'm making people laugh and fall off their chairs. And I thought that was AA. If you could get people feeling good, that was AA. And I didn't have any message, no message. I have a two-stepper for 14 years. I had no message. I can admit that. I can sit down and admit that openly. From the day it happened, I thought, oh my God, I've only missed the whole program. I was a hero in AA. I was a god in AA for 14 years. I got in fights and meetings. I threw tables over on people. I was a legend. I was becoming a criminal sort of, possibility in AA, but I was a legend, goddammit, and I didn't take shit from anybody. And AA is the best thing that ever happened to me. And that barn burning experience that I had in 1987, that's what I was sharing from the front of the rooms. And that's what I would talk about. I would talk about the desperation and the madness and the self-contempt and self-hatred. And the people in the audience, 200 to 2,000 people, would hear that. And then I would make jokes about it and laugh. And they would come up afterwards with tears and go, I felt just like you. And I thought AA was happening. There was no transitional recovery. There was no adequate presentation of anything. It was like we were told we share our experience, strength, and hope. I was told what I was like, what happened, what I'm like today. I was told those things, never understanding that a 12-step recovery, having had a spiritual experience as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics. The 12-step recovery message wasn't even there. And because I made a name for myself, it happens here on Zoom a lot. There's false guruism done where you got these little two-dimensional sort of recovery heads like me. You asked me to come and speak here because somebody heard me on Zoom or something, and so you got this two-dimensional recovery thing where there's talk, and what we're talking about here today is the ability to observe what recovery looks like. when you say here's like, um, going back to this idea of a chief responsibility, when it says that that's how my walk should look, and anybody in a AA, there are my good friends here from Ohio who I've spent wonderful time with over these last few years on these Zoom calls and stuff like that. And I think I trust, and I see Maureen everywhere I go, and Brad, my friend who's here from our home group. I believe if you watch me, if you put a GoPro on my head from the time that I get up in the morning until the time I go to bed at night, you would see for a great deal of the day, not all of the day, maybe someday, but you would see for a great deal of the day that my intentions are aimed at the service to others. This is what I was going to talk about earlier, and I got distracted by myself, which happens a lot. I'm with my Alcoholics Anonymous friends right now. So I just want to put this out there, and I don't even know why, but maybe I need you right now. I told you how I spent my day yesterday. I was at a conference in a small town up north, and I was speaking I was the dinner speaker, and I sat anonymously through the entire day. Nobody knew me. I had plain clothes on, and I wasn't suited up or anything like that. So I had a great day with all these old geezers, just loving on AA and AA people, and great food. These little small communities always have great date squares and nice baked stuff, home baked stuff. It was a great day and a great meal. And then I went and got my shirt and tie on. Nobody knew I was the speaker, and I went and got my stuff on, and I come out. So I had a wonderful day in the middle of AA, in my estimation, in the middle of AA. The day before, my best friend of 50 years, 55 years, my best friend of 55 years had called me and told me that his brother-in-law was drinking himself to death in his apartment, and that his wife, Heather, wanted Sean to reach out to me and just see if there's anything I could do. So I contacted this fellow's brother, who was going to look in on him. And what a beautiful man. This brother was an incredible man. And I said to him, I said, listen, Brian, I says, you give him my number. No, I'm not around at all tomorrow, but you give him my number. And if he calls me, I will drop whatever I'm doing on Sunday, and I will be there. I will be there. And I called somebody else and said, you want to do a 12-step call? They had never done a cold call, 12-step call before. You want to do a 12-step call? So it was set up. In the middle of my day yesterday, I get the call that the guy died. He drank himself to death. Now, I'm not suggesting in any way that it has anything to do with my putting priorities ahead of, my AA priorities ahead of this 12-step call. I did not see that coming. And I've been doing this for a long, long time. It felt very comfortable for me to say to that family member, you give him my number, and if he calls me, I will drop what I'm doing and come. And you, Brian, you call me anytime, and you tell Heather I love her, and that all she needs to do is call me, and I can talk her off the sill. Well, so we lost one. And alcohol is a rapacious creditor. Alcohol, it's a brutal foe. And this guy, a year and a half ago, had a life. He lost his wife. He lost his job. He got impaired a year and a half. Now he's living in a small apartment, drinking himself to death in a year and a half. And, this is the history that I got while I was just getting ready to go on 12-step this guy. And I'm feeling funny. I felt funny about that. I got that message and took my space, and there was a little code area, a little darkened code area. And I went to this new employer and I said, explain this to me. Help me understand this. Really? One more day? And there's no answers or rhyme or reason for this. And it came to me very powerfully and very strong, was that I was at this roundup to do a job, his service. I was directed to do that. And right now I'm questioning his objectives for me. And I asked his forgiveness. This all came to me in 3 minutes in a courtroom. I asked his forgiveness for doubting his objectives for me. And plainly letting me know that I need him more now at 37 years sober than I did at 14 years sober. And this is what I meant when I said we grow in understanding and effectiveness. As we feel power and peace, we enjoy peace of mind. We discover we can face life successfully. As we become conscious of his presence, we begin to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, and hereafter. And this is the idea that I have to continuously gravitate towards that relationship, this conscious relationship, not being blown away by the bank shots that God makes every once in a while, but being conscious of his power and his presence. And a lot of people say to me, man, Marty, is AA all you do? Like, is that it? No, No, I play hockey, I fish, I work. I have a great job that I love very much. I have 4 insane grandkids, and their parents are even more insane, so they keep me hopping. I have a lot going on. I have an amazing full life. This way of life, this AA, this power, is just the power that drives it all. And I said it earlier, and I'll say it again. I'm never closer to this power than I'm with another alcoholic. So I walked out of that coat room yesterday and went immediately to seek someone to have a conversation with. And I found her. There was a young girl there who was drunk. She wasn't sober at all. And she was angry. She hated AA, and I like that. She's my people. She didn't want to be here. She got dragged there. And so what do? I start cracking jokes. I put my hand on her shoulder. I start cracking jokes. She doesn't know I'm going to be speaking in a couple hours. She doesn't know anything about that. And convinced her to stay for the afternoon. And she did. And it was really sad because they did one of those countdown things. And I kind of knew it would happen, but I was sitting up closer to the front, and they got to the countdown. They got down to 7 days, 6 days, 5 days, 4 days. And I turned around and watched her bolt out the door. I don't know why I'm talking about that, but we have to be aware of that, right? We have to be aware of that. Don't do a countdown if you don't know. If you don't know who you're dealing with, because somebody should have been beside her, man. Somebody should have been with her, and maybe it was me. I didn't know that they'd do a countdown. When they did, I didn't know that would shake her out the door. I was like, but we our chief responsibility is an adequate presentation of the program. So what do I do with this brand new lady who's got alcohol in her breath and violence and anger in her heart? What do I do with that? An adequate presentation. More than ever before in my sobriety, demonstration of these principles appear to be my cause. It appears to be my objective. Do I look like a man who believes in this power, this incredible power? Do I look like a person when I'm walking through my day, when my children upset me, or my work doesn't go the way it does, or I have a loss or a death, and I have doubt about this, that I maybe let my friend down because 24 hours later the person's dead that he asked me to help? Well, where do I go with that? Where does my ego wants to play with that and say, look, you failed, buddy. But that voice can't have an existence in my head. The moment it comes, I must rely upon this power and get quickly in touch with somebody else that I can be of service or help to. It's the only way I can exist, And so, when I spend some time with someone like this young girl, it's kind of like my objective is to be a demonstration, to give an adequate presentation of these 12 steps at work. It's not to take her through the steps while she's sitting there drunk. It's to make this thing as attractive as possible by giving an adequate presentation that she can have a whole different life. And it's not about pointing and looking at, hey, look around. It's about trying to get her to feel the vibe. Everything inside of her, all her instincts is going to reject love and tolerance and acceptance because she hates herself. And she said that very clearly. So this anger and this stuff in there is like, I play with it a little bit. I make, because I know that anger. I know that anger. And then try to hook her with this idea that there's nowhere else for you to go, and there's to become, not drinking and be exposed to some of these ideas and some of these people could be the greatest thing that ever happened to you in your life. And not preaching or not twisting or pushing anything on her, a God or an understanding of God or all our cute little piss ass sayings, we have. It's like not to put that stuff on her, but to rather have her understand there's an enveloping that happens here. My experience was way before I got sober in a one-day roundup. It was my first AA meeting ever. Would have been just like her, except I hadn't been drinking that day. Full of rage and anger, still diagnosed sociopath. But when I was sitting in that room and you guys all stood up, there was this thing that happened. If you know my story, everybody stood up. And for some strange reason in that moment, I had a sensation. It was like, oh, no, 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 not AA. These are my people. I had this realization that you guys are my people. And I didn't want that either. But I don't want to say it was a good experience or a bad experience. But having not had any connections in my life at all at that time, no family, no God, no, I didn't even get along nice with others in prison, no connections. And then you guys did this thing, and it happens all the time. Sometimes when they say, can we close the meeting with the Lord's Prayer? And the chairs squeak across the floor and everybody stands up. There's like a whoosh. And then somebody says, God, our Father, whatever it is they say. And I went, oh, no, I'm one of these guys. I'm one of these guys. And the magnificence of that moment was an absolute defeatist attitude. Oh, no. And it was like, I don't want to say it was a surrender, but it was like, I got connected. I'm not a sociopath. To understand the deep compassion and my heart, how full it is with love for others and for the downtrodden, the destitute, the people. My middle daughter's on the street right now as we speak. She's opiate atrophy. She's hunched over. She's hooking. She's trying to make a living just to survive. And every once in a while, I go out and take her for ice cream. No judgment, no nothing. And you alcoholics, you go down on the main strip here in Barton Street in Hamilton, and you go on and you see her and you pick her up and take her for a hamburger, and you tell her that AA loves it. It drives her crazy. She hates it. She wants to be here so bad, and she just, excuse me, I'm just getting a little choked up. What you guys have brought to my life it's not just that; it's the essence of that. Constant thought of others, the way our chief responsibility is adequate presentation. That doesn't mean sitting down with a book, although it does, taking people through the 12 steps. An adequate presentation is, do I look like someone who lives this way? That's my objective. That's what I'm charged with. It isn't, and we're all at different places and different levels and different understandings and all that kind of stuff. But in every day, to the best of my ability, do I look like somebody who believes this stuff I talk about? Am I minus 55? How'd that happen? I thought it was counting up, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, we get to go another 40 the other way. I'm so sorry, folks. I was watching the clock. That clock thing's a great idea. It puts a little pressure on us, but that's a great idea. You guys getting up with me at 8 o'clock in the morning on the East, I love you. Thank you very much, and it's great to see you. And let's hear what some folks have to say. Thanks so much, Young. I appreciate it. I love you guys.